Last season, Dalton Knecht seemingly came out of nowhere, taking college basketball by storm and culminating in an SEC Player of the Year award. The question now, who's next?
You are Locked On College Basketball, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? Happy Tuesday to everybody. Welcome into the Locked On College Basketball Podcast, the only daily national college hoop show out there. I'm your host today, Isaac Schade, and you're joining me at the place to get your college basketball content every single day. Thanks for making us your first listen or watch, and I want to remind you that you can catch every episode ad-free on Amazon Music. Special shout out to all you everydayers and all the members of the Locked On College Basketball Discord. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As the playoffs wind down, the sports stop sportsing like we want them to, but this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone, every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to get started. All right, coming up on the show today, we're going to look at several candidates to be next year's Dalton Knecht. We're also going to talk about, hey, since we are now into July, that means all the new schools are in their new conferences, and there's a lot to get caught up on. So I want to make sure that you're up to speed with all that, what the new schedule is going to look like for these conferences, all of that. And then we're going to wrap up talking about NC State. They've had a couple of pieces out and one come in. So one other quick note, Andy mentioned this yesterday on our Monday show, but today is the day that Dickie V is having surgery. As a reminder, he had got a biopsy report back that showed cancer in the lymph node in his neck. And so, just really, really hope for the best for Dickie V, and really hopeful that this surgery will eradicate the cancer and get rid of all of it today. So let's dive on in. Here we go, talking about Dalton Knecht last year. Came from Northern Colorado in the Big Sky, JUCO before that, blew up, had a crazy year at Tennessee, and then is drafted, and he's now an LA Laker, right? So we're always looking at, and obviously coaches are looking at, who can I get that's going to be that next year? So basically what I want to look at is who is a candidate that played for a non-Power 5 school last year that is transferring to a Power 5 school and could go off and maybe get himself into the first round of the NBA draft, things like that. So the candidates for that, again, I've got 9 of them for you, no particular order, just guys that I see having potential to be this year's Dalton Knecht. Let's go. Number 1, Zeke Mayo. Zeke Mayo played at South Dakota State last year. He's transferring home to Kansas at South Dakota State. 18.8 points a game, 18.2 the year before that. So it's not an anomaly. It's consistent. He can score in any way you need. I love him going to Kansas because he's from Lawrence. He's a senior. That's going to be a trend that you see with just about every one of these guys. He's a career 38.8 three-point shooter on 5.8 attempts a game. Never had a season below 36.9% in 7 attempts a game. And so as an individual season, I should say. So, that's great to see. He's a ridiculously good free throw shooter. He's a good rebounder, a good assister. Watch out for Zeke Mayo to be this year's Dalton Knecht. Number 2, Terrence Edwards Jr. Now, this is a name that a lot of people actually already did know. That was one of the things with Dalton Knecht. A lot of people didn't. Terrence Edwards Jr. went off for James Madison last year. They upset Michigan State right at the beginning of the season. And so you might already know about him transferring from James Madison to Louisville, where he will play for first-year coach Pat Kelsey. Last year at James Madison, Edwards had 17.2 points, 4.4 boards, and 3.4 assists. He's a good, not elite three-point shooter, but another fifth-year guy that should be able to have a great year at Louisville for what I think will be a resurgent Cardinals team. Number 3 on this list, another name that you probably know because of what happened in the NCAA tournament last year is Trey Townson. Trey Townson played for Oakland last year. He's transferring to Arizona. You probably know his teammate, Jack Golke, better because of how he went off against Kentucky. But Trey Townson is the guy that had the consistency all year. One thing with Townson is he might not be a Knecht candidate because of the presence of Caleb Love still at Arizona, but he's a front court guy, and so all of that can coexist. And so it could work for him to be a Knecht candidate. Another fifth-year player, 17.3 points last year, 16.5 the year before that, 8.1 boards last year. One thing I will watch for is Townson is only 6'6", so I'm curious how that translates to the next level at positionally, right? And so we'll watch for that. So there's your first three. Number 4, Chaz Lanier. He's transferring from North Florida to Tennessee. So quite literally could be a very Dalton Knecht-y thing. Another fifth-year player, Chaz Lanier. He's a 6'4" guy, exploded onto the scene last year at North Florida. 19.7 points, 44% from three on 7.5 attempts a game, 88% from the free throw line on 3.4 attempts per game. Also chipped in 4.8 boards and 1.8 assists. Here's the one thing. Chaz Lanier prior to last year had never had a season like that. Was it an anomaly, or is it just the new Chaz Lanier and what we should expect? So there's that. Number 5 on our list. If it is not Chaz Lanier, it might be his new teammate at Tennessee, Darlin Stone-Dubar, who transfers from Hofstra to Tennessee. Now, these two guys could cancel themselves out in terms of being a Knecht candidate because, there were other offensive players last year for Tennessee, but Knecht was just the dude. With Dubar, another fifth-year player, it's just a theme. Something I love about him is his size. 6'6" guard, 17.8 points a game last year at Hofstra, 39.9% from three on 5.5 attempts a game. That is silly and should be great for Tennessee. Also chipped in, though, 6.8 boards, 1.4 assists, and 1.2 steals. Number 6 on our list, another one where we've got two players from the same team on the list, so they might cancel each other out, but we'll see. Number 6 is Danny Wolf, who's moving from Yale to Michigan. A junior, the lone non-senior or fifth-year player on this list. Last year at Yale, nearly averaged a double-double, 14.1 points, 9.7 boards, 2.4 assists, 1.3 blocks, and is another good, not elite three-point shooter, 34.5% on 2.6 attempts a game. But given his size, you'll take some of that. So Danny Wolf, a front court player at Michigan this year, where he teams up with the number 7 player on my list and is the first of 2 players transferring out of his previous school, and that's big man Vlad Golden, who's leaving FAU to go to Michigan. Now, it's maybe a little unfair to pick FAU, but they are still a non-Power 5 school despite having made the Final Four 2 years ago and then not being quite as good last year. But Vlad Golden is an absolute dude. A fifth-year player, another one of them. He's made good jumps each of his first 4 years, so I expect another one at Michigan. And despite he and Danny Wolf both playing in the front court, I think they will be able to play together. And so there is potential for them to both be Knecht candidates. Last year at FAU, 15.7 points, 6.9 boards, 1.6 blocks. So, good numbers. We'll see how he continue, or I say good, great numbers. We'll see how he continues to push forward. Would love to see some more rebounding from him. Not a three-point shooter, but he is a career 62.1% shooter from 2, including 67% last year on 8.9 attempts a game. So we'll take that from Vlad Golden. 2 more players on our list. The next, number 8, is his teammate from FAU, John L. Davis. Again, another one that might be a little unfair to have on this list because he's been somebody on the national radar for a while now, but still not a Power 5 player previously. He's going to Arkansas to play for John Calipari, where, we expect him to be able to go off. We know that at Kentucky last year, they were one of the most prolific offenses in the country, along with Alabama. And so he's 16.2 points a game, 6.3 boards, 2.9 assists, and 1.4 steals. I don't expect those numbers. Obviously, the talent around him will be greater than it was at FAU, but I feel like he's going to have a green light. He's the elder statesman. I think John L. Davis is going to have a year. Last year shot 41.4% from three on 4 attempts a game and is a stellar free throw shooter. John L. Davis might be the guy to be the Knecht candidate. And the final entry on our list is Tucker DeVries, who follows his dad from Drake to West Virginia. His dad, Darren, will be the coach now at West Virginia. He's a 6'7" guard, so has a lot of that Knecht kind of size. He's a fourth-year guy, so again, another senior or fifth-year player. Last year at Drake, 21.6 points, up from 18.6 the year before that. He's never been above 40% from three, but he's attempted 6 or more every season. And even though he's never been above 40%, he's always been in the mid to upper 30s, 35.9% career three-point shooter. He's a great free throw shooter. He's a good positional rebounder, 3.7 assists per game last year, 1.6 steals. Tucker DeVries is going to have a year. If you don't know him from Drake, he's going to burst onto the scene this year in the Big 12. So there you go. There are my 9 Knecht candidates for this year. Let me name them off one more time. Zeke Mayo at Kansas, Terrence Edwards Jr. at Louisville, Trey Townson at Arizona, Chaz Lanier at Tennessee, and Darlin Stone-Dubar at Tennessee, Danny Wolf and Vlad Golden from Michigan, John L. Davis at Arkansas, and Tucker DeVries at West Virginia. There you go. Now, today's July 2nd. With the calendar turning to July, every remaining power conference is picking up some newbies, some Pac-12 outcasts, and of course, some moving within the Power 5 conferences. So how is it going to affect things in the short and long term? How are conferences shaping up in terms of conference slates and tournaments next year? We'll get to all of that in just a second. Right after I tell you about FanDuel, man, I love sports and I love them so much that I never want to stop. But unfortunately, as the playoffs wind down and are over, we get fewer games and the sports just aren't sportsing like I want them to. But here's the great news. FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I got to do is open the app, dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood, and boom, FanDuel has me set. This summer, the best news is that FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. Yeah, that's right. Every day, all summer long, there's something for everyone at FanDuel. How about some MLB player specials? I love this one. Paul Skeens, right? The young stud pitcher for Pittsburgh. They've got odds on his strikeout totals for this year. 150 or more, minus 140, 175 or more, plus 215, or 200 or more, plus 680. They've got stuff for who's going to be the home run leader in Major League Baseball. There's some Aaron Judge player specials. Man, head on over to FanDuel.com to check these out and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. With the calendar turning to July, yesterday we're into a new fiscal year. Most, in academia, we run fiscal years July to June. And so the conference realignment stuff, boom, is done and happening. So what I want to do right now is make sure we're all up to speed, right? Like one of my favorite things to do is sit around and memorize, make sure it's just like I can just rattle off all the teams in every conference. My wife always joked because I made her do it on our honeymoon. I made her memorize. Yeah, I guess that's the wife of a sports media person. I apologize, Maggie. I love you. But maybe you're out there and you're wanting to keep up and you're like, man, I can't keep straight all the new movement. Well, I'm here to help you today. Let's dive right into it. We'll go alphabetically. ACC has 3 new schools, 18 total. Remember, Notre Dame is a conference member in everything but football. So there were 15. Now, as of yesterday, adding Cal and Stanford from the Pac-12, as well as bringing in SMU. So conference games for the ACC is going to stay at 20 games. Here's how they're going to do it this year. 3 opponents will be home and away. They will keep 2 of them that are that every year, and then 1 rotating home and away opponent. And then the final 14 games will be 7 home only and 7 away only single games against every opponent. So they will play everyone at least once, with 3 of the schools twice. As for the ACC tournament, only the top 15 schools are going to make it. I don't love this. I had come up with several formats where you could keep all 18 schools, but whatever. So only the top 15 schools. It'll be March 11 through 15 in 2025. Mark your calendar. This will be at the Spectrum Center in Charlotte. Let's move to the Big 12. This is the conference that's had the most in and out and in again lately in college basketball. So remember last year, 4 new schools joined: BYU, UCF, Houston, and Cincinnati. As of now, Oklahoma, and Texas are now out the door. And now there are 4 new schools coming in, all from the Pac-12. That is Arizona, Arizona State, Utah, and then Colorado is back. Remember, they were in the Big 12 before they went to the Pac-12. So the Big 12 went from 10 schools to 14 last year, down to 12 with Oklahoma and Texas leading and now leaving, and now up to 16. So 16 is the number for the Big 12. Andy and I talked about this on yesterday's show, but just to refresh, or in case you missed it, the conference games moves from 18 up to 20. It's the only conference of the Power Four football schools. We're not really talking Big East because they don't have any movement going on. That is changing its number of conference games. The Big 12 is going from 18 up to 20. Again, as we talked about yesterday, it will be 5 home and away, 5 home only, and 5 away only. I kind of like that because it's a nice round number with having 16 teams. So there you go. Big 12 tournament stays in Kansas City. I think they've already signed. It was like through the 2031 tournament maybe. And so it's just going to keep being in Kansas City there. All 16 teams will participate, and it will be March 11 through 15, wrapping up on Saturday as it always does. How about the Big 10? Big 10 had 14 schools. It adds 4 new ones, all from the Pac-12. You've got 2 of them from the PNW, Pacific Northwest, Oregon and Washington coming in, and then the 2 LA area Pac-12 schools, USC and UCLA. Conference games is staying at 20. They're going to do the same thing as the ACC, where it's 3 home and away opponents and 7 home only, 7 away only. That's how that'll work. The tournament is also the same as the ACC, 15 teams with 3 of them not making it, and it'll be March 12th through 16th. Always wraps up on Sunday, right? Like just leading into the NCAA tournament bracket reveal. Nothing yet on location for the Big 10 tournament, at least that I've found. I scoured long and high and far and have not been outside of speculation. Didn't see any release from the Big 10 about where the tournament will be this year. And then finally, the SEC, they get 2 new schools, obviously Texas and Oklahoma, adding to the 14 that are already there. Conference games is going to stay at 18. So that'll be there what we get for the SEC. So it's the lone of the Power 4 football conferences that is not at 20, giving these SEC schools a little bit more non-conference scheduling flexibility, maybe a couple more bye games. So the way they're going to do it is 3 home and away, just like the ACC and Big 10, but then 6 home only and 6 away only because of having just the 16 teams. So the SEC tournament, March 12th through 16, at Bridgestone Arena there in Nashville. Similar to the Big 10, it always wraps up on Sunday of Selection Sunday. So that's what it'll be. All 16 schools participating in the SEC tournament. And then finally, keep in mind, the Pac-12 is no more. All those schools are doled out to the conferences we just talked about, but Oregon State and Washington State, as a reminder, at least for the short term, are joining the West Coast Conference. So that'll be really interesting to see them compete with the likes of Gonzaga and St. Mary's and Pepperdine and so on and so forth. So really interesting to think about, like, which of these new schools is going to be in good shape long term, is going to be in good shape short term this first year. In fact, we've got a mailbag question we're going to tackle on Friday dealing with that very kind of thing. Who's going to be the best this upcoming season? And then, of course, I don't think this is all said and done, right? These commissioners are all looking at the changing landscape. And so, like, get this all memorized, but just keep in mind, it might not be the long-term thing. So learn them, but just be ready that we'll call this wet cement, shall we? If that makes a little bit of sense. All right. Now, final part of our conversation today is we're going to Raleigh, North Carolina to talk about NC State, who has had some odd roster movement in the past week. 2 players are gone, 1 coming in, And have you seen DJ Burns, by the way? He looks very different. We're going to talk about all that coming up in just a second. Multiple NC State sites reported last week that neither MJ Rice or Ernest Ross are with the team anymore. Now, it's just been kind of a weird offseason for both of these. This is a bummer for NC State. Neither were starters or anything like that last year, but provided a lot of depth to the team, a lot of help and capability. MJ Rice is somebody with a big time profile that could have been big time for the Wolfpack and Kevin Keatts this year. So I'm really bummed to hear about this. And pretty kind of private, not many details about what's going on outside of personal reasons, that kind of thing. So with MJ Rice, for those who are unfamiliar, was originally a Kansas commit, played there in the 2022-23 season, came to NC State last year for 23-24. And Pack Pride's Corey Smith tweeted, quote, MJ Rice has withdrawn from classes at NC State and is leaving the program, according to multiple sources. Rice will now seek a red shirt for last year and likely will need a waiver to play next season with the transfer portal closed. So all of that. So MJ Rice last year only played 9 games at NC State, 4.1 points. Just shy of 2 rebounds, didn't do a ton. And so is going to apply for a red shirt, a medical red shirt for that. We'll see if he's able to get it and be able to do that. But again, the portal is closed. He's leaving NC State, but you can't do anything. You can technically go into the portal and transfer somewhere, but have to do it the old school way where you would have to sit out a year and then play in the 25-26 season. And so MJ Rice, I'm sure, will apply for a waiver to be able to play somewhere next year. And I think at that point, we'd probably learn more about what's going on because in order to apply for a waiver, you'd have to disclose that. And so we'd probably learn more. What's interesting about MJ Rice is that back on January 24th, NC State announced that he'd sit out the rest of the year and was ultimately going to seek a red shirt. And even at that point, it was pretty silent, pretty private on reasons, just personal reasons. And so this is weird with the MJ Rice. He's a guy that floated around a lot in high school as well. And so you worry for him. Is there something going on? I don't want to speculate because that's not appropriate of me to do to say anything of that nature. But I just hope that MJ Rice is doing okay, And so really thoughts are with him, but curious to see what his next steps will be. Now, as for Ernest Ross, it has been a weird offseason for Ernest Ross. He would be heading into his senior year at NC State, has played 3 years there. But after the season, entered the transfer portal, committed to UTSA San Antonio, but then ultimately decided to return to NC State. But now he's not part of things. Same as MJ Rice. He's always been a bench guy, literally never started a game at NC State, but he's a 6'9" forward that I expected to have an impact for NC State. So I was glad that he was coming back to play for Kevin Keatts to see how they could follow up their Final Four run, but it's not going to happen. So I hate this for the Wolfpack. They're probably going to look to see if there's anybody they can bring in, and they've done one such thing already. In the midst of all this, the NC State has added Ismail Diouf. I hope I'm saying his last name correctly. I wasn't able to find a pronunciation on it, but last name is Diouf. He's a 6'9" French-Canadian big, so essentially mirroring Ernest Ross's size there. And so this is much needed because you lose DJ Burns, you lose Diarra. Those guys are both gone. They do have Brandon Huntley Hatchfield coming in. You keep Ben Middlebrooks. But Diouf, from what I've seen and read about him, has a pretty versatile skill set as a big. And so I think is going to be a really helpful piece and contributor this year for NC State. So we'll keep our eyes on that. By the way, speaking of DJ Burns, did you see his transformation ahead of the NBA draft, right? DJ Burns has several years now been one of my favorite players in all of college basketball. He's so affable, like a happy-go-lucky kind of guy, always smiling, always loving playing the game. but has just been this massive, quite literally larger than life kind of guy, who's a very good basketball player. I always wanted a little more consistency out of him, but is a phenomenal distributor. And if you play the distribution, he can beat you inside or whatever he needs to do. Well, ahead of the NBA draft, my man was down 45 pounds. I absolutely love it. Wasn't drafted, but signed as an undrafted free agent with the Cleveland Cavaliers. So I'm really curious to keep tracking DJ Burns' progression as a player to see if he can land somewhere. I'm sure at least he could get a professional deal somewhere overseas. And so, man, best of luck to DJ Burns, and good for you, man, for that body transformation. I'm just curious to see how that changes him as a player, and what he does on the court now. All right, folks. Fun show today. Great to be together. Tomorrow, Andy will be with you. I'm actually out of town the rest of the week. We've already recorded a mailbag episode for Friday, so that'll be up for you on Friday. Keep those mailbag questions coming in. We'll do more throughout the summer as well. If you haven't subscribed to the show on audio and video, make sure you do that. Very easy to do on YouTube, or if you're listening wherever your favorite audio platform is, just hit subscribe right on there. If you're not part of the Locked On College Basketball Discord, we'd love to have you there. It's free to join. The link is in the show notes on both audio and video. Come on in and join us. We'd love to talk college basketball all the time with you. As always, apologies to the Lawyer family. Let's go Wildcats, and until tomorrow, peace.